Found it. Okay. Let's just bring ourselves up to speed. Is this your first session with us both?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. I couldn't remember. Forgive me. So, shall we do just the general housekeeping? Just so we've got it on the call, and then you can tell us what you want to dig into. So, goes without saying, I think, but I'll say it anyway, that anything you share with us is in confidence. I'm in a room on my own, as is Kate, apart from maybe dogs. And cats. But last thing we knew, they had signed a non-disclosure agreement, and that still stands. I'm here on the basis that you understand that I'm not a trained medical professional, nor am I a trained solicitor. I'll let Kate tell you what basis she's here on.
What are we listing the shit we're not trying to do?
No, not all of it. We'll be here all day. But
I too am not a solicitor.
Kate is a psychotherapist, though, so she's grounded by a different code of ethics than I am. I can do whatever the hell I like, pretty much.
I have to spill the beans if you tell me you're a terrorist or you're money laundering or that there's a kind of present danger to some children somewhere. So if you are a terrorist or you do launder money, just don't tell me and you're fine.
Okay.
And then with regards to safeguarding, if there is anything that suggests to Kate or I, or not suggests, makes us believe that a child or young person is in clear and immediate danger, we would have a conversation ourselves between us, either bring it to you or trigger a referral, but that has never happened on these calls. And we always try to be as transparent with our parents if anything like that does crop up. But we're not here to judge you today at all. We'll do that in our own time.
It's not just a today thing.
Yeah. We'll do that in our own time. We won't let on. Okay, so you've got an hour with us today. Do you know what you want to get out of this time with us together?
I think, yeah, for me, there's like lots going on. So obviously with under the Unstoppable parent program, myself and Heidi have had discussion predominantly about my eldest daughter. So that's kind of an ongoing thing, and I feel I'm just still constantly learning. I've worked with neurodivergence for years, so it's that kind of side of things is not really new to me, but perhaps how my daughter presents is new to me. And I think it's actually very different working in it than living with it.
Yeah.
But I think also why I also joined this program was I think I've probably known for years, maybe 6-7 years, I've got I'd say autistic traits, some maybe stronger than others. But I think it's just always been one of those things where it's been quite livable. I think maybe in some ways it is disruptive to life, but it's to other people I think would be quite subtle. It's not a massive deal, I suppose, as such, but I think it's becoming a point where my youngest has definitely got a diagnosis of ADHD, but due to a spiky profile, she's not got a diagnosis yet of ASD, but I've been pretty much told by medical professionals to expect that next year. So to me, that is them really saying it is. I don't think they would have committed themselves as much as that to say that. She's completely a different presentation to my eldest, though, who is sort of very anxiety based. Again, she could quite easily go under radar. It's not like where my youngest, I think you can't miss it.
Yeah.
The eldest and myself present quite similar, but I think, to the outside world, not really with the top of anyone's priority list to give a diagnosis to. But I think I've got to a point in my life that maybe I would actually like that validation rather than just, oh, this is what I think. And then if you say it to anyone, the automatic reaction is, I'll laugh, oh yeah, we've all got a bit like that. And I thought, well, no, we're not all a bit like that at all.
Yeah. In our house, we are all a bit like that, but not in the wider world.
I think in the last call we had, or maybe one of the calls that we had, we talked about the possibility that your eldest we thought might be PDA.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think, sort of, she has some sensory issues. She doesn't really do anything that I personally notice as sort of stimming or anything like that. So there's nothing that's sort of, if you took her out, she'd sort of stand out, but her life is quite debilitating with anxiety, and what she feels she's like able to do when, and sort of complains of headaches and body aches quite a lot, tiredness, that kind of thing. Where my youngest is just a whirlwind of fun, and she's a sensory seeker. She's like a flash of light. In everyone finds her quite. She's one of these people that sort of lights up the room. She's non-verbal, but she is also deaf. So, but it has been suggested really it's not the deafness that's the non-verbal bit, it is the other. So I think we're just on a self-discovery journey really. But I think it's got to the point where maybe even for their sake it would be good to have some firm kind of knowledge of where it stands for myself as well as for myself. I kind of had to do this parenting course sort of around Easter for my youngest, and this was kind of discussed, and said, I think I would actually like to know. And he kind of actually, like, not in a rude way, but he kind of laughed in my face and said, what good would it do? And I said, the good it would do is I would know. It's not just I'm just sitting here saying I think I'm this, with no weight, and for the things that are a bit sort of life disturbing for me, that everyone, who cares? No one would care. If you've got a firm diagnosis, then people can't ignore things. And I think it is about understanding yourself and accepting yourself as who you are. And there's no point bringing up children or yourself as a neurotypical if you just are not. It's not going to work. So I think I'm on a complete discovery. So I'm really enjoying the course each week, all the different topics, and actually then not necessarily feeling the fraud, because I'm thinking, actually, this is really touching the button here. It's you can't just be thinking, yes, that's right, that sounds familiar, and it not have any truth in it.
Yeah.
All of that. I think it's a real position of privilege to say, well, what good would it do you to have a label if you're somebody who's always been able to see your experience of life reflected in those around you? And you don't need a label, because you can find your people, and you have a shared language and a shared understanding of an experience of the world. And the narrative you have about yourself is like broadly neutral, maybe, because that's just normative
and generally accepted.
But if that hasn't been the case, and you said that you kind of identify with your eldest in their presentation, which sounds like a really classic high masking presentation. So you'll find people will talk about like there being a female presentation of autism, which is not true, because there isn't a female neurotype. What there is like a masked presentation. And that's common for AFAB people, but also marginalised people generally, people who might have to just consider their safety or not be at the top of the pecking order in every situation they walk into. So that high anxiety, the kind of embodied experience of fatigue and achiness, of like constantly overriding their fight or flight for the masking. So it's quite often chronic pain and chronic fatigue, co-occurring conditions for lots of neurodivergent people, because we haven't had our traumatic experience. I'm talking like little t experiences, like those everyday, like arousal, alertness things, just overridden because don't be so sensitive.
I was definitely I think in the last couple of years I've maybe toughened up, and I think I do care, but I think I also have got to a point where I don't care what necessarily people think, where previous, even as little as 2 years ago, that was not the case. And I would replay situations and conversations and maybe even make assumptions of what people were thinking or saying that wasn't even happening. And so kind of had this built up dialogue and thought process that actually could have been completely phantomized by myself. But the amount of time that was spent really wasted or not wasted on that. I think, though, one thing we do have, both myself and Mia, is we're quite a good sixth sense of people. She will always spot the ones in the room that are, I don't know, particularly nervous. She feels they're dishonest or whatever. She's quite a good sense of character. And she doesn't particularly care, I don't think, what people think of her, where that has been a learning process for me over a lot of time. And certainly as a child, I'd pick out even the smallest things that I felt was different to someone else. Very, I suppose, good ability of scanning the room, but I find things like parties and things hard. I look forward to these things, and then when I'm there, it's not living up to expectation, and you're kind of thinking, actually, I wouldn't mind going home now. It's that kind of thought. And I think, like, as a child, I've kind of been sort of worded as weird and things like that, and then I kind of, well, what makes me weird? What have I done that's made me different that other people are spotting out? So yeah, I think there's a lot of things I still don't know or can't put a question, an answer to the questions and stuff that I sort of have.
That picking up on people's character or the energy of something, that's your, I think, likely to be neuroception. So your neuroception is your sense of threat. It's what picks up on the energies of other people's nervous systems and what they're doing. And quite often PDAs particularly will have really sensitive neuroception, which is why if somebody is not totally okay, they can be really anxious in their presence and really dysregulated, because they can sense that something is inauthentic or jarring about the person that's saying they're fine, but all of their energy is saying that they're not. And obviously we have unevenly wired brains, which means that some of our connections are 8-lane superhighways, some of them are dusty tracks. If our neuroception is an 8-lane superhighway, we're getting lots of information from it, can take more to regulate it because it's our strength. But there's nothing is a strength without having some kind of like shadow to manage, and nothing is like a thing that we struggle with without having some light to it if we can find it. But it's like to master the genius of our particular neurology. So like your gift might be that you can really sense the energy of a room, and the thing to manage might be, and therefore you might be exhausted by the energies in a room very quickly because you can't turn any of them off. You just take it all in. So you need to kind of build yourself get outs from big people events so that you can only go there for your threshold.
Yeah.
Be empowered to know that it's okay to leave because you have a brain that will just sponge it all up, and that will be hard and exhausting.
Yeah. I mean, like, years ago I used to be a nurse, so I think it hasn't always had its negatives. Like sometimes you'd really like see a patient and you'd see their kind of either anxieties or troubles or something, and you could just pick it up, and some people used to say, oh, how did you know so and so was something, and she just could sense they were different today than normally. Because I worked on vascular surgery, so we had them for about 18 months, so you kind of got to see them more than your own families in some cases, and so you kind of had that time to really know them as a person, and you think, oh, no, they're actually really worried today or something. So I'd say it has its perks as well as its negative sides. I suppose when it's more personal to me or what I think someone's thinking of me, then that is really like on its sort of big time. But yeah, I mean, I actually found nursing very tiresome. I think the hours, the energy it takes and things as well. Yeah, I think, I don't know really. I just, yeah, how to sort of understand myself better. I think I've probably not accepted myself as well. That's a big issue. And I kind of always think, oh, when I do go to parties and social situations, I'm kind of a burden, or people have felt they've needed to invite me again. That's that sort of dialogue that's going on, that actually, if they didn't want to invite me, they don't have to. So really, that's probably the reality. You know, yeah. But that's not the conversation I'm kind of having with myself. So I think that is another reason, kind of going back to what this guy that sort of felt like, oh, what good's that going to do, is actually, it's going to be a lot of good, because it's so I'm in my early 40s now, so I think I've just gone years of running life the way I kind of can, and things are different than other people's lives. I do notice that, even like how my relationships run and work and things like that. I also have a very sort of strong sense of right and wrong. If like an employer's ever told me to do something I really don't agree with, I struggle to do it. And then I thought, oh, perhaps I just don't really do as I'm told. And then I thought, well, no, because it's because I don't agree with it, I feel I can't do it, not that actually I just can't do as I'm told. So there's just been all these sort of things that I'd say are like interruptions, I suppose, in how I behave differently to somebody else who would just easily do as their employer tells them or something. So I just think, yeah, I do want to know. So I haven't kind of gone to a GP and kind of gone on a very long waiting list. I'm going to go privately. I just I think also, if there is something such as like a directory or someone you can go to, I don't even know who I would kind of go to. I think I particularly would want someone that is used to a more female presentation. Mm-hmm. I do personally stim, but I do it privately. I wouldn't just stand in the street and do it. Yes. I have quite a bad habit, as my daughter tells me, of humming. But I've noticed I hum a lot when I'm really stressed, and I think actually I probably really want to scream. Turn it into a song instead.
But also the resonance of that, you know how cats purr, and therefore that's how they soothe themselves. Like, so when they get ill, they will purr, and that's part of their healing. The resonance you create in your chest is soothing, and you're creating vibration in your body and moving energy when you hum.
And you're also blocking input as well, aren't you? You're like, if you're humming, it's hard to hear. When we go places, because I have auditory processing differences, noisy places are really challenging for me and for Theo. And the way we manage that is we hum, like quietly. Okay. No one can tell. But in pubs, when it's too noisy, I'm just to make it manageable.
You have a particular thing that you hum? Because I do. I hum the theme tune to the old Club Biscuit advert. If you like a lot of chocolate on your biscuit.
All right. I like that song.
Love that.
I don't think I do have a thing that I hum. I think I just hum whatever's in my head.
Yeah, I'm the same, but I again, I don't know if this is just a me thing, or I have a constant like playing of music all the time. I've even woke up in the night and dreamt music. I don't know why. I'm not a musical person. I don't play instruments, nothing, but it's like there's a jukebox just permanently going. It never stops. And so it could be, oh, it's bad if I hear music like on the radio. That's it. That's that song for the day. But
do you have things where phrases remind you of music as well, and then they get stuck in your head?
Yeah.
So if someone says something, do you hear a line from a song and have to sing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Can I just put my money on the table and go, I think what you'll be diagnosed with is autism and ADHD. because that's the hyperactivity that people assume has to be presented with bouncing off the walls in a very physical way. It's the hyperactivity of thought, of process constantly. You've constantly got that music going. That's it.
And people who are combined autism and ADHD generally are, inverted commas, better at masking than just pure autism or pure ADHD, because the two kind of cancel each other out. Not really, but in terms of presentation, you have like and also it's pure chaos inside an autistic ADHD brain, because you're constantly battling between the need for routine, the need for dopamine, the need to be organized, the constant clutter, the wanting peace and quiet, not liking being on your own. All of that is
the urge to deeply focus and the absolute inability to find it.
Yeah. I've just done a degree for 4 years as well, part-time, and everything has been, I think the assignment I got closest to the deadline was 2:58 in the afternoon for 3 o'clock. Pick that one.
My people.
Full time.
It's like, if the computer goes glitch now, I'm really had it, but we'll just go for it. Everything is kind of last minute, and I could be doing one thing, but then I'll flick to the other, or have a thought in my head like, oh God, today's a deadline for something. It is a bit chaos. But I don't present that way, in the fact that I need to sort of run 3 laps around the park, where my little one does. She's very physical. But I think mine is all here.
And the interesting thing as well, you were saying about your eldest not stimming, and then you said, I do stim, but I do it privately. She may not be aware of that even, but there is something about that kind of presentation where we are stimming, but we don't even know, and it's not something that people would identify as stimming until you go, So twiddling of hair, rubbing of face, sucking thumbs, rubbing your feet together, bouncing your legs, not necessarily big movements. Like stimming doesn't always mean, stimming doesn't always mean spinning around and flapping, and and also activity can be stim-like. So things like hobbies can be stims. So if I know loads of people who are into crochet, that's a stim.
Okay. Neurotypical people just call their stims things like yoga and crochet, whereas we have to have like fixed, repetitive, stereotypic.
We have to claim it as a trait.
Oh no, she does. She plays with her hair a lot, and she does slightly rock as well while doing that. So she does it. I think my stim aggravates her, because she's like, I can hear you in the kitchen. She's the bedroom above the kitchen. I hear you in the kitchen, and you're vibrating my floorboards. I'm like, okay. I don't know, her hearing is ultra good. Like, I thought I wasn't even humming that loudly. I'm sure even in the next room you won't be able to hear. But
So how dysregulating might that be for her to go to a school environment and not be able to switch off any of those, and then have to try and decipher and discern which ones she needs to listen to? Exhausted.
And our kids who, well, all people, but our kids especially, who have really sensitive auditory processing, like Theo can hear electricity. Like we have to turn plugs off and stuff. He's like, I can hear the router. So it's in a school environment especially really overwhelming. Those electric fluorescent lights make terrible noise. And we've got round the corner from us the shop, and they've got one of those teenager alarms, that only kids under 12 can hear. He can still hear it, and he's 19. So
It always seemed very strange to me that my kind of profile really is that I have auditory processing differences. Significant hearing loss as a kid, which is slightly better. It got slightly better, and then I got meningitis, so it took out some particular frequencies I can't hear, but I can say them. I don't hear them. So there's so much hearing loss, but then auditory processing, and then I can do things like I can hear the plug. And the fact that all of those things are true makes people really disbelieve me when I say I can't hear you, because they're like, you just had the plug.
Yeah,
true.
yeah, there is just completely kind of, I wouldn't say ignorance, that's a kind of maybe a bit of a harsh word, but I think so many people don't understand hearing loss at all.
Yeah.
Have you read that book by Samantha Baines?
No.
I've got it, I'll show you the cover in a minute. It's excellent for anyone with any form of hearing loss. And she talks quite often about things like meningitis that's cut people's hearing off and different frequencies and things like that. So yeah, it's really, I'd say it's worth a read for anyone actually to have that kind of awareness. But you might be particularly interested if you've got hearing issues.
Yeah. So would it help you to have to do some screening tests for yourself, so you can be like, oh, here's some data points that I can validate myself with?
Yeah, I think so. I think last year when my daughter, my youngest one, got a diagnosis of ADHD, she was only just 4 as well. So a lot of people said to me, oh, did you go private? I'm like, no, it was NHS, but they assessed her for 4 hours. It was a long assessment. They were like, the whole 4 hours she was very obvious. We did pick up ASD symptoms, but she had a developmental impairment which brings her age down. So they thought that some of the ASD, she does a lot of things like grouping things, size order, that kind of thing. She does stim, she circulates a lot and watches things circulate, but she, like a lot of people, like professionals, oh, does she like people? And I said, well, actually, I can't say that she doesn't. I really think she does, but it's on her terms and conditions. You know, like if she wanted a toy, there's no bargaining with her. She's having it. But yes, she'd be quite happy to go up near you. It's not like, oh, you're not there. And so eye contact and she would kind of give a smile and things like that. So I think she scored too much on that.
On the old ridiculous measures of autism.
That was a bit, the problem. But I think
was too
when
human.
she got the ADHD diagnosis, I think then I thought to myself, oh, couple of things they said, I thought, oh yeah, I was a bit like that. Like, she doesn't sort of daydream and things, but I kind of used to sit at school and daydream and look out the window and could have been in my own world for God knows how long. And I think until really recently, I didn't understand ADHD enough to know that actually I probably am. I'd say one of my biggest ASD traits is I hate change. I like to know what I'm doing when I'm doing it. I'd be the worst person to hold a surprise birthday party for it. Yeah, I need to. No, I think that's for my own anxiety levels, not my control as such. So
that's why we control, is to make safe.
Yeah, rather than you know. Yeah, I think I would like to have some screening tools to sort of know where I am. And for an assessment, would that be appropriate to say I've used screening tools to identify?
You're going to go private anyway, so they're not going to question you. They're going to be like, yes, we'll take your money. So you're like, if you had to go to a GP and say, hey, I'd like a referral and I'd like the right to choose, sometimes they can give you a bit of resistance, and having some kind of screening tool can be
have
helpful.
a screaming tool too, if you like.
Yeah, we'll make a screaming tool.
We'll take that.
But I don't think you're going to have any problems, and they won't necessarily need those because they'll do all the things. But for you to believe yourself.
Yeah.
And also to be prepped for going into that assessment, although you've sat in on your assessment for your daughter, being able to just to know what might be coming can be really helpful, to have a feel for the kind of things they might ask you. And if for no other reason than that you're ready for it, and you maybe won't mask as heavily as you would have done if you didn't know what was coming.
sit and do some humming.
Yeah. And the autism assessment, it's like a really weird test that you won't be able to believe there are answers to, because they'll just seem like, I mean, you'll have your own experience of that, but like one of the things that I was, one of the reasons they thought I was autistic is because they asked me how I got to the place, like how I arrived at the meeting. And I answered them, but I didn't ask them how they got there. But then for me, that was like a boundaries thing. I'm not here to ask you about your life. Your professional's here to do a job.
Oh, you meant they actually physically asked you how you got there? I thought you were going to say, they asked me, what brought you here today? And you went, the bus.
Oh, no. They wanted to know about that. And then they marked me down. I marked me a bit more autistic because I didn't mirror that inquiry. But I think it was actually more of a social skill to recognize that their job, that there was a professional boundary and confidentiality, and I wasn't going to intrude into their lives by asking them questions about how they got there. Also, because I didn't give a shit.
No, exactly.
I've got stuff to do. Assess me. I don't want to small talk. So yeah. So it'll be, sometimes it feels like I don't know what the right answer to this is. This feels like a nonsense, because it is a nonsense.
Yeah, it's daft. Basically, what they're trying to do is look at what you do and say and how you behave to work out what's going on inside you. It's like the opposite of an X-ray. It's pure guesswork. But like, you can't tell if someone's leg is broken unless the leg is like, the bone is sticking out through the skin, unless you do an X-ray. But they literally are looking, given that your bone isn't sticking out through the skin, they're trying to find other ways instead of just like doing an X-ray, which would be to say to you, do you think you're autistic? And you to go, yeah, I do. And then go, cool, you're autistic.
Yeah, we do too.
That would be the simplest assessment on earth. Or to bring you into a room with other autistic people and for us to go, yeah, one of ours.
That's how I think it should happen, because we're really quick. That one makes sense to us.
Yeah.
They're one of us.
We could do it. We could get through hundreds of people in a day.
Yeah. Okay. So I know the two screenings, there's a poll load you can do, but the two that I would start with, and I'll send you links for, the RADS-R, which is generally used to pick up more master presentations, and then the CAT-Q, which is about looking at people's masking and camouflaging skills to see how you, and compensatory skills, so how much you compensate to appear normal in the day-to-day. So like, and they're quite quick, so I send them to you, it'll spit out a score, and then we can dig into them a bit if that's helpful.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
And you were interested in thinking about who to go to as well, weren't you? Like you were.
Yeah, I'm quite interested in someone that's either got speciality or familiar with female profile, because like yesterday I went to I just found it actually, it was a free like Lambeth group with Naz, and it was for children, so I took my youngest, and it was maybe like between 15 and 5, the age groups, and the variety of presentation there, from what I'd say was quite severely disabled right through to somewhat, like they were all clearly neurodivergent, but some were like much more functional than others. And like there was one girl, she just really was like really I'm sorry, I don't know what the proper terminology was. I was going to use the word impaired, but I know in hearing world, impairment is like...
Yes, we'll help you out with that. So we're going to ditch functional labels, because what they do generally is say like, how much is your disability going to impinge on my life and make things difficult for me? So I would be seen as high functioning to some people, because I'm a psychotherapist, hold down a job. They wouldn't see the absolute chaos when my needs aren't met and that I can't get through my emails because it makes me want to weep. So
same,
right? So low support, I'm actually sort of low to medium support needs. So if you describe to people by their support needs, it actually speaks to what they need. So autistic with high support needs, it sounds like what you're saying, and possibly a motor disability. So my friend Gregory has never spoken. He's non-speaking because of apraxia, which is a disability. It's like you probably heard dyspraxia, apraxia, and dyspraxia get used a lot. 86% of autistic people have a motor disability. 86, and that's like a continuum, right? So for me, sometimes it means I just throw a cup of tea across the room. It's not communicating. Not all behavior is a communication. That's a misfire in my brain. It's
For me, it's falling over.
Yeah. For some people, it means they can't control their mouths and their throats and make the speech sounds and the mouth words, and so they get seen as being low functioning because they can't mouth word, because we've got this idea about like the hierarchy of what communication is best and supremacist and what isn't, and they might not be able to reliably control their body or move their body, so they get seen as low functioning rather than just high support needs with a motor disability. That was a soapbox issue. I'll get off it now. So yeah, high support needs, motor disability, those words help you out of situations like that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. I was
Also,
finding
you
that
can
word
use
in
whatever
pair would
language you
come out,
need
and I
to.
thought,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can use whatever language you need to with us. It's fine.
Not a problem.
We'll help you so that when you're not with us, people don't go, you know.
Or that you can help people do better for your kids and yourself as well.
Yeah.
Because if they call
Yeah.
you high functioning and you just feel like, I have literally just put my dinner in the bathroom or something, you're like, I don't feel very high functioning today. You'd be like, low support needs or medium support needs.
Yeah. But no, I found this group kind of, it was my first time, but it was really, it was nice, and yeah, my daughter enjoyed it. She needs a lot of screen time, and there was one boy there, and his dad's got 3 mobile phones charging to one that the boy's using.
Tag teaming.
The swap over.
Yeah.
So she sat with him, and they said, "Oh, this is nice because he's a regular. Oh, he never makes friends, but they hit it off over the screens." So it was nice because my little one finds it very hard to make friends, but again, I think her deafness doesn't help with that, to be honest. And yeah, she's not in the best placement for school, to be honest with you, for that. So that's not helped, but it is nice to sort of see her connect with people, because I think that was one thing that's well at that with her, I kind of felt really sad for her. She doesn't get like the invitations for after school tea or parties. She's just the child that's left out. And I think with the day and age of WhatsApp, you know what's going on around you, and yeah, I can't say it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, of course.
It probably hurts me more than her. I don't think she's even she's
Did
happy.
she use AAC or sign at all?
So we're learning BSO, and that's just kind of more on the signing. She only speaks 1 word, but unfortunately she was late implanted. My local area said no, she's a hearing child, and I kept saying no, she's not. Then over COVID, they wanted to diagnose autism over the phone. I said, well, look, I'm not going to accept that, because I said, you haven't even met the child. So they didn't. Then it's come about that she actually most likely is, but she wouldn't have got any diagnosis anyway without her hearing sorted. So I think they've killed the first 3 years for her, and she's playing a lot of catch up. But she's a very odd profile. She's quite able, like as in sort of like she can count and things like that. She's also even starting to write, but she can't read. I don't know how she's managed that one.
Neurodivergent kids don't do the timelines that are expected of us.
Yeah, I think like she can make an omelette from sort of scratch. We have to negotiate the whole pan thing, but Great Ormond Street, they said, oh, that's learnt behaviour. Once you've shown her she's seen it, it's like Pandora's box, I suppose. You've opened the lock.
Well, hang on a minute.
Isn't everything learned
How
behaviour?
are we supposed to do it? Are we not supposed to learn it?
None of us can intrinsically make an omelette. We all have to be shown.
Oh yeah, I mean, we kind of like originally cooked together, and then she must have watched it and recorded it.
That's how we learn to make an omelette, isn't it? That's how everyone learns to make an omelette, right? How do they learn it on Ormond Street?
I think because when she could do it, she was only sort of 3.5, 4. So they were like, oh, that she's remembered it, and that was a skill that they would predict more of a sort of 7+-year-old.
Yeah.
But the things that she should have been doing, like 18 months, she's not really doing.
So she's got a very visual memory. She can, if she sees it,
Yeah,
it's locked in.
yeah. But yeah, unfortunately, she's not doing things like speaking yet.
But she could be a person that signs. She can be a person that spells to communicate. I work a lot with non-speakers through Neuroclastic. And because they are apraxic, so they're never going to be able to, or probably only very slightly going to be able to have some speech that won't be reliable. They work with their motor skills to coach the motor so that they can type to communicate that way. So some people will learn to speak and have great speech. And my speech was very, very slow because deafness and autism and all the things. And now I'm a gobshite. But also, like, if I could go back and tell myself something, it would be that it would have been okay if I never learned to speak, and that if I signed and if I was a signer. Like, sometimes we kind of place this value on mouth words as communication as being the way. And actually, the way is a language in which you have a full range to communicate the things you need to and to have relationships with. I don't know if that's at all helpful, but like.
But did you feel the frustrations as like most of society will speak in preference to sign?
It's really interesting. I felt the frustration of being made to speak.
Okay.
Because I had my hands, so this is like speech therapy in the 80s, right? So my hands were held so that I wouldn't sign. And then my face was touched to manipulate my mouth into the right shapes. And I had to say the same things over and over and again. And I couldn't always hear or discern whether I was saying the right things. So it all just felt a bit like wizard chess. And I got there and I regained some hearing after some surgery, and then I lost a different kind of hearing. So I have sort of sensory neural deafness, whereas I didn't have that to begin with. There are times now where it's exhausting for me to listen and process what I'm hearing, and all I want is for more people to sign. And and I'm giving myself permission as a neurodivergent adult who's kind of working through my ableism to use AAC, not because I haven't got ears that work, but because I deserve regulation and to feel okay. And so to sort of augment that and to use all of it all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can feel like if we can hear, then we have to speak. If we can hear a bit, we have to. We don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely nothing wrong with her, like, understanding. But yeah,
I wonder as well, like, so I can't speak to this as, you know, I don't have hearing loss and I have never had any trouble speaking. I was an early speaker, so probably quite the opposite, and that people would be happy if I hadn't spoken as soon as I did, I think. But I do wonder as well about so as someone who is friends with Kate, I noticed that when Kate is tired or overwhelmed or burnt out, one of the first things that goes is her ability to communicate orally. And as someone who's a friend of Kate's, I'm really grateful for those times when we can WhatsApp. So, and that is just AAC for adults who have phones, you know, and me and Theo do it as well. So it's kind of, for us, that is often a more reliable form of communication for the two of us as adults. So I guess it's finding that and having the people around her and you understand that a more reliable, more consistent form of communication could be another means other than her speaking. And if she speaks, then great, for whoever or not, doesn't really matter. But what is going to be the most reliable form of communication for her? The least frustrating, the safest, the least overwhelming. It may not be spoken word.
All of it. Have all of it. Have all the communication. All of it's good.
Yeah. Is your sign ESL or is it Makaton?
Yeah, with a horrible Welsh accent. Not horrible, but like a broad Welsh accent. So I sound like my speech therapist. I don't sound like my family. I sound like that kind of received pronunciation bit with a bit of a Manchester twang these days. My family sound like straight out of Gavin and Stacey. So, but my signed accent is Welsh. There are accents in BSL.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
love that. So
Yeah,
it's WSL.
Yeah, Wussel. When I was in my early 20s, I did a little bit of work as an interpreter. My signing is not up to scratch anymore because I don't use it as much. But I remember going into a room, and I was late, obviously, and the guy wanted to tell me that the room was full of people, and so he said that the room was full of people, but in South Wales that's a sign for bollocks. And so I was just like,
The room is full of bollocks.
he was right, but that was what he was trying to say.
I love that. Did you say she currently does read, doesn't write, or does write, doesn't read?
Can write, doesn't read.
Brilliant. I love that. I'm going to be the one that produces the things. You can read it.
So again, you could just write, like, we practice our names on a whiteboard. So okay, 2 of the names in this household are just 3 letters, but still she's learnt them just by sight. So now we're practicing with red because that's her favorite color, and sort of other words. So she's able to do that. So I reckon she will learn to read just by sight words.
Yeah.
Which might be a stroke of luck because her school is a hearing unit. And I asked them how she's meant to learn phonics. So, for example, like obviously in BSL, father is just F, and then it's lip pattern for dad, papa, whatever you use. So one of the words for her to learn is dad. So I said, well, do I ditch the BSL then? Because obviously that's a whole different letter of the alphabet. I said, and just speak. They don't know. They're going to have to find out. And I'm like, oh, crikey.
Wow, okay. So does she know the alphabet in BSL? Like, because there's a difference between
We're
spelling
still
and signing.
practicing. She's not, fluent with that. But yeah, I think I just worry because of the most of society have speech, and I see people come up to her, oh, what's your name, and want these big long conversations that are just not going to come. She just stands there, doesn't even look at them. She doesn't, I don't think, even pick up on that expectation of what they're wanting in return. So then I fill in the gap, and then they're kind of like looking for more, like, why have you just answered? So then I feel the need to say, oh, she's deaf. And so the story goes on, and yeah, I think if she's sort of naturally signed, no one would really, I just feel the barriers of this communication, but I don't see it as any less than oral. I just think, unfortunately, so little people sign, in particular BSL.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we do see someone, we get very excited. Like, wow.
Yeah, it is always exciting. And when I see somebody deaf in public, I always want to sign so that they know I sign. It's really weird. Even though they don't want to talk to me, they're just out there, but I just get really excited about them.
Like an Englishman on holiday when he hears another Englishman.
Yeah, I imagine like that.
Or a Yorkshireman, anywhere.
Only there's fewer of us. And also, there's a deaf gay accent as well. I could go on. I did deaf studies at university, so that's like hidden special interest.
Oh.
Interesting.
Okay, so I'm going to send you some screening tools.
And when you go for an assessment, do you have to say you want an autism and ADHD, or do they just kind of screen a range of things?
Privately, you have a bit more control, I think, but they are 2 separate diagnostic criteria. Sometimes you'll have a situation, I know that Kate and I and Theo had this experience where you're going for one. Theo, we had this with, he had an ADHD assessment, and the assessor said, I'm happy to write that he's autistic as well. And some private practices will want you to have separate assessments. There'll be a little bit of a discount for your second, but generally speaking, you're paying for them as separate assessments.
Sometimes it will be less because you've done the majority of the paperwork that you would need to do for a separate assessment. So they're only charging you like they're not charging for two whole separate things. It's just a.
I don't know what your thoughts are, Kate, in terms of if you're going to do that, what conversation you might have had with other clients perhaps about whether it's better to go for an ADHD assessment first and then ask for a upgrade to an autism assessment, or the other way around.
What I say tends to depend on what people want. So some people are like, I think I'm autistic, but my ADHD is disabling because I'm struggling to do my job, and if I was on medication that would help me, in which case I always say, well, do that first, because that's the thing that you can get medication for, and you're not going to be any less autistic afterwards, like if you have to do them in two parts. I know that some assessors have said, let's assess you for ADHD. If you want to be on medication, let's titrate that, and then we'll do your assessment, because if you have the ADHD profile and one can sort of mask the other, so let's get one regulated, if that's what you're going to do, and then we'll do the other. And some people just do it all as one. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you're not specifically looking, it sounds like you just want to understand your neurotype.
Yeah.
Ask them the question what they would do, because that won't be new to them. Like at one point I would have recommended the people that did mine, and these days I don't so much, because I feel like they've got really busy and they're a bit crap.
They did mine too.
Same. Got busy and crap. Yeah. I could ask around and see whether people have some good experience of like affirming diagnosis for like the more master presentation, if you want.
Yeah, no, that would be good. Or at least I don't suppose there's like a directory or a database where you can look and there is a list of people.
I don't think there is, that I know of. Like at Neuroclastic we have one, but it's not even all UK, so it's not very up to date. And
I have got one. I will find it for you. I don't even remember the name. I'll have to go back through my Insta. But
Sure.
it's someone who someone recommended to me, and I had a look on their website and thought, oh, this looks good.
Oh, okay.
I'll find it and I'll send it to you to have a look at.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
But it is literally someone sent it to me and I'm like, oh. So that's as far as the recommendation is going, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But actually it might be a good idea to ask in either the big group or in the neurocurious group what people's experiences have been. I think it's about, I think it's about finding, what am I saying? Yeah, ask for recommendations is what I'm saying. There isn't, I don't think that, I mean, there's probably lists on things like the National Autistic Society website, but I wouldn't necessarily go down that route myself, for lots of reasons.
Yeah, I think
ADHD, I'll ask Kathy, because Kathy knows her way around ADHD pretty well. I'll ask her. That's kind of one of her interests is that stuff. So I'll ask her what her experience has been and whether she has people on her radar who have been good in that respect. The other thing to be aware of with ADHD at the moment is that whilst in theory you could get medicated, there is an international shortage of more than one of the medications for ADHD currently. So that's an extra layer of complexity to be dealt with if and when you get that far. Not all, but some.
And also, to your knowledge, with ADHD medication, is there any links with like I imagine it upsets the endocrine system a bit. So any links with diabetes or thyroid problems if you take medication?
Oh, I'm not qualified to say either way.
When you're in titration, they do things like your blood pressure and all of that jazz.
They take full medical history.
Yeah.
And they you start, so when you're on a stimulant, I started on a stimulant and you start on a tiny dose and then they increase. But I'm actually I would be on a non-stimulant medication, because I kind of tried that for a year and it worked a bit, and then I felt like it wasn't working so well, and I felt a bit bit antsy, a bit speedy, and I was like, I don't think it's quite right, so changed. But you know, you've got a nursing background as well, so you'll know the right questions to ask. And when you have those appointments, that like those, when you get to the medication appointments,
They're pretty thorough.
Yeah, so with my people, you kind of meet with a prescribing nurse and you have conversations around what your concerns are. And
okay.
And the other thing to factor in, Kate, is that if you are going to pursue a private diagnosis, when you get as far as looking at costings, you want to make sure that you know what the costing is for titration, because you could be in titration for 6 months and you might need to be having a monthly appointment with a prescribing nurse during that period, and you'll pay for those appointments as well. So just to factor that in when you're budgeting.
Yeah, thank you.
And check that your surgery accepts shared care and that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, no, that's great, thank you.
Right,
amazing.
The diagnostic tools, when they come, I just fill them out there for me, or would I take them to the assessment when I go?
I don't think you'll need to take them to the assessment. They're for you. But it's a two. I'm going to give you a link for 2 different screening tools. They're not assessment tools, but they're screeners, and they'll give you some data that say, yeah, you're broadly in line with the average scores of an autistic AFAB person, or no, absolutely neurotypical as all hell. Why did you waste your? It's not gonna
That won't happen.
just saying.
But also we've got some more calls, haven't we? So if you wanted to bring those back, we could, if you wanted to, we could have a chat around that stuff, or you can use Tuesdays, whatever you want.
Yeah,
Tuesdays as well.
Tuesdays.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah.
And also I know that last Tuesday you mentioned your daughter and anxiety, and I was wondering about like doing a little bit of psychoeducation around polyvagal and regulation hacks and sensory and stuff. That might be useful.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, anything to sort of calm her, because she's not even calm at home at the moment. She's just on full alert, and yeah, she's now picked up another obsession of boxing. So they've been up in the night watching these matches. So yeah, she doesn't do anything by halves. She knows
she
the
got
whole
a punch bag, Kate?
No, but she probably could do with one.
I say she got a way to let that energy out in a physical way with some proprioception, because that sounds good.
Yeah, I mean her main passion and what she used to do prior to her sort of being housebound was dancing. But we actually are very lucky. We live near the ex-boxer Duke Mackenzie. He's got a whole kind of martial arts and boxing kind of thing just a mile away from us. So I've kind of told her about him. I said, oh, maybe you'd like to go. Just anything to try and get her to sort of venture out a bit, but she's interested but not ready yet. So yeah,
but just letting all that kind of adrenaline as it dumps into her body when she's actually just like moving it through her body, like shaking it out, so that it's, because what happens when we suppress that is that it manifests into sort of aches and pains. So if she can feel antsy, dance it off.
Yeah. Oh no, that's great. Thank you very much.
We'll send you the screening tools if you want to. Will we get them to Kate today, Kate?
I can do it now. Should we just put them in the chat now? Just give me a second.
I'll put them on the email as well that I sent to you, and if you want to, we can WhatsApp the heck out of it tomorrow, and anything else.
So the first one is, where have you gone? There.
Just putting it in the chat, and then I'll copy it across actually into an email.
The first one.
That's the RADS R.
Yeah, and then Q I would do as well. And that's
Amazing.
And if you do that, I want to just take a screen grab of what the results it spits out and like pops them in the WhatsApp for me, and I'll have a look at them tomorrow. And
okay, yeah,
I'll tell you that you are indeed one of ours.
I mean, everything you need to interpret them is on that site, because it has a lot of different screening tools, and it talks about kind of what they're good for, what their pitfalls are, and it explains how it all works. But by all means, let's dig into them tomorrow. There's no pressure for you to make sense of that.
Hey, is your email the K.O. Sullivan 1982?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
I was about to go, no.
Great.
Guys.
I'll pull you a transcript across and
That's
a
brilliant.
summary, and I'll send you a recording.
Thank you very much. Thank you both.
All right, love.
Yeah.
Speak to you
Thank you.
later.
Take care. Good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Stop recording.